All right, what's up, my brothers from another mother? Today's video is going to be a little bit longer one. I'm going to go into some greater depth. I think I might even upload this to my Patreons first and then share it with the rest of the community afterwards. But I want to talk about breakups, false law, reconciling past loves, all that stuff that kind of ties into that. War brides, which is another notion we should dive into in this talk. But over the holidays, I did a few coaching calls with guys that booked my time to talk about reconciling with a lost love or a past love that he's wanted to fix things with. And we talked about some vetting notions there. But I had a conversation with my lawyer about 6 or 7 years ago when I was getting divorced, and he told me this is always the busiest time of year for him, is right after the Christmas holidays and right after the summer vacation time. And he suggests it's because we spend a lot of time with each other in a relationship or with our families or in-laws, whatever it might be. They're not working, so they got time to kind of like think about the relationship, where it's going, whether or not it's serving them, whether to continue or not. So here we are in January. This will be very relevant for a lot of you guys out there. It might be useful to some of you others just thinking about stuff. But this is the busiest time of year for lawyers in divorce and breakups. First thing I want to talk about is a survey that I did on the community tab, soliciting some responses from you guys, and I'll get into some other information as I'm kind of going through this. I might bounce around a little bit because there's a few things I wanted to cover. But on the community tab, if you haven't seen it yet, it's there on the page of the YouTube channel. It shows in your subscription feed on your mobile device really well, and you get a lot of engagement. Actually, I had close to 2,000 votes on this. This is kind of a field test for me. I've been well aware of Tomasi's work. Iron Rule number 7 states, it's always time and effort better spent developing new, fresh, prospective women than it will ever be in attempting to reconstruct a failed relationship. Never root through the trash. Once the garbage has been dragged to the curb, you get messy, your neighbors see you do it, and what you thought was worth digging for is never as valuable as what you thought. Now, I tend to go back to the work of the Red Pill community, the Manosphere, the Rational Male, and especially Tomasi quite often when it comes to anything in this space. And when I did this survey, just minimize this again, it was more about field testing that thought, that idea. I put it out about a week ago. The interesting thing was a couple of days after I published that survey and was thinking about doing this video, my own LTR, non-cohabitating LTR came to an end. I'll talk about Berfolt's Law in a moment and why that happened, but the survey results echo my own experiences, the experiences of guys, and many of the people that I've coached as well. So the question that I posed to the community was, setting aside women that you've dumped, when you've been dumped by a woman you loved, what has the most common outcome been? Pick only one that represents the most common. So out of nearly 2,000 votes, it's a pretty good metric. I mean, I'm going to say that this data is going to be very reliable. It comes mostly from men. I'm not so much concerned about what women are saying. So I know it's like, 95% of you guys watch my video are dudes. You guys said, I never heard from her again. More than 60%, so 63% said that. 17% said, we got back together again, but things fell apart and it ended. Only 2% of you guys indicated that you got back and you're a happy couple. Another 2% said that you got back and you're an unhappy couple. So really only 4% of you guys got back together and maintained that LTR, and half of you were unhappy when getting back together out of that 4% of the entire survey results. And the last one, I just kind of had to fill something in there because there was the option for one more. So I just put, we still chat, hang out, bang, whatever. You kind of blend all that stuff together, but you're still talking, but you're not in an LTR. Now, the interesting thing that came out of this, a lot of you guys left comments. There's, 50 or 60 of them. And this is the top thumbs up comment. So I'm just going to read this one out because I think it speaks volumes about these sorts of scenarios. Dumped, voice changed to a cold chill, a tone that you'd expect to hear if you committed a horrible crime. Blocked me on social media, threw my number away. Days before, she was gazing into my eyes and telling me how much she loved me. I was deep in love. I didn't see it coming, super painful. Won't ever really get it. Lucky for her, she had a guy already in the chute, monkey branching. Heard she met a guy weeks after dumping me, then was immediately engaged. Poor guy. My eyes are wide open. I'll never be the same. So, the interesting thing that I find about a lot of guys, and my own experience too even, is when a relationship comes to a hard end, if you're in a LTR, non-cohabitating, cohabitating, it doesn't matter what it is, wherever you are in that scope, if it comes to a hard end, women tend to move on very easily and quickly. We already know that men are the true romantics. Women love more opportunistically if it fits their agenda. Again, Berfolt's Law. If it fits their agenda, if it serves their narrative, if the total servitude is there to their feminine imperative, then they're cool with it. But if it's not, then that's when they start to question things. And I've got a few notes here I want to kind of dance around. But back to the war brides thing. Throughout history, whenever there's been conflict between two tribes, nations, villages, whatever you might want to break it down to, the conquering tribe, village, country, whatever it is, as it moves in, usually what they do with the men that are of fighting age, generally speaking, in the fighting age, working age, they'll either put them into slavery or they'll kill them off. And then the women of that tribe, community, country then become war brides to the conquerors or the liberators, depending on what it is. In fact, I remember reading a article where there was a law passing Canadian legislation because Canadian troops played such a large role during the Second World War, and as they were liberating Europe and getting rid of the Germans, they started to, of course, meet the French women, the Dutch women, and all that sort of thing, and they formed romantic relationships, and they wanted to bring them back to Canada. So they passed this legislation to allow these war brides back into Canada. Well, not back into Canada, but allow the troops to bring their brides back into Canada. So it's been something pretty consistent throughout history. I think you could even go further back in time to where we were nomadic hunter-gatherers living in these tribal communities, in a non-monogamous fashion, just kind of like taking care of each other in those small tribes, 25 to 50 to 60 people sort of thing. And if Bob went out with Paul and Phil and Bob got smoked by a saber-toothed tiger or a mastodon or something like that and didn't make it back, they'd have to explain to his main partner or primary partner, wife, whatever it might have been at that time, plate, who knows, that he was dead, and that she'd just have to kind of move on and select through somebody else. So I think women throughout history have adapted very well to the end of relationships. Men, not so much. I think it's only been in recent history that we've lived in an environment like this, where we're not being conquered on a consistent basis by warring nations or tribes, or getting killed by mastodons or saber-toothed tigers or anything like that. So generally speaking, what I find with men is they tend to have a lot harder time breaking up with women. I think if you operate with the right lens, with the right awareness, you can get through it pretty good. So there's the survey results for you. I hope that shed some light on what many guys' experiences have been. One thing that ends up happening is if you're not serving a woman's narrative, we've talked about Berfolt's Law. So if you're not serving a woman's narrative and it's that time of the year for her to reevaluate the relationship. Often New Year's, we make resolutions where we, where is this going? Is there going to be progression? Is a timeline suiting her agenda? I was just talking to a woman, actually, my video is uploading on another tab in Amsterdam, and she was telling me that she was in a 24-year marriage, loved the guy immensely, and it ended one day when he came home from work after a bad day at work, had a few drinks, and had a blow up. And she never loved him after that, and they got a divorce. So guys don't often see these things coming, or they don't understand why they come. And it's often difficult for them to try to reconcile. So a few points in this video that I want to go over is, first of all, this is typically the outcome. If you try to reconcile a broken, lost love that isn't working, this is usually what ends up happening. 2% of you will get back together and be happy. 2% of you will get back together and still be unhappy. The rest of you, it never works out again. So just understand that the odds are really not stacked up in your favor. The only time they're going to be stacked up in your favor is if you break up with her and she comes back to you. Quite often when she's dumping you, she's not coming back to you. That's it. She's forgotten about you. She's banging the next guy very quickly, out dating immediately, monkey branching, whatever the narrative is. You got to let it go. I think that one of the things that men need to understand to navigate a lot better through the sexual marketplace when it comes to things like this is you need to understand it's just your turn. And your turn might be a lifetime, but more often than not, because 50% of divorces end in, 50% of marriages end in divorce, 70% of second marriages, or as much as 80% end in divorce. You're not up against the best odds. So don't enter that dating scope or even an LTR, if that's what you're doing, with the expectation that she's my forever after. Because if it comes to a hard end, it's very, very easy for her to move on and, decide who the next guy is going to be. Maybe she's spinning multiple plates. Maybe it's one after the other. Women like to seek a monogamish type of LTR, even though they claim to be a monogamous type of creature. They're really not. We can talk about that in a much deeper, longer video if you want to get into the work again of Chris Ryan at Sex at Dawn. But women have a much easier time of moving on. The things that you got to do, guys, is maintain frame. You want a woman to be a complement to your life, not the focus of your life. And it should be vice versa to some degree too as well. You got to add some value to her life as well, but she should enter your frame. So if you've got a timeline, you've got an agenda, you've got work to do on yourself, you need to become better, you need to deal with your stuff. Don't sacrifice yourself, your agenda for the priorities of a woman, because we all know nothing's really forever. It's more than likely just, your turn. And again, your turn could be a few months, a few years, it could be a lifetime. More often than not, it's not that long. So it's just your turn. So don't sacrifice your agenda, your life, for anything that's imposed onto you by a woman. It's actually very sexy. It's sexy as hell to women when you behave alpha as a giant, when you actually allow them to enter your world. You should never enter a woman's world and conform to her agenda or her timeline. It's always women coming to men. Men are the gatekeepers when it comes to relationships. Women are the gatekeepers when it comes to sex. So you can use that sexual connotation there as far as the receiving of the man. But men are actually the gatekeepers when it comes to relationships. So understand that's a very, very strong dynamic and power that men need to utilize. Women are the gatekeepers of sex. That's what it is. They're ultimately going to decide whether or not they're going to sleep with you. But men are the gatekeepers of the relationship. So you should maintain that frame. You should be the gatekeeper to the length of the relationship. If for whatever reason, Berfolt's law kicks in and it's not working out and she decides it's time to bounce and she wants to go do something else after an ultimatum, she goes on a covert fishing trip looking for trouble to try to justify her decision. Let it happen. Maintaining frame and control allows them to do what they need to do. Let them figure it out. Anytime you yield to that, it puts the dynamic of the relationship in a bad position. Women want to be with winners. They don't want to be a winner. Another interesting thing that I can point to, something that's happened over the last couple of years, which I've found fascinating because of things like social media, and I suppose to some degree because I have so much of a more public presence on YouTube and the stuff where I publish this stuff, is I've had no fewer than 2 ex-girlfriends in the last, I was 19 when I had my first girlfriend, so I'm 44, so almost, just over 25 years now, come back and indicate that they had regret and it was a mistake for them to break up and leave me. And it's funny because you don't expect it, you don't want to hear it, you don't even care. I wasn't interested in even, seeing them or anything like that. I remember I had this one ex of mine when I was in my 20s, absolutely crushed me, broke my heart. I was 24 at the time. She came back, found me on Facebook, sent this long message about wanting to just express her feelings and her regret at the time. So it's fascinating. Women are these fascinating creatures that we absolutely adore and love and we want to cherish and put up on a pedestal, but don't do that. Don't put women up on a pedestal. Be the prize. Be the fucking prize, gentlemen. You are the ones that should be running the show. You guys should be the one that should be dictating the direction of the relationship, and women should be a complement to that. Anytime you sacrifice that and you put huge priorities over your needs, dealing with your stuff, whatever your agenda might be, she's actually going to lose respect for you. I know a lot of guys think that. Here's one of the common stories that come up often that I read in comments, that I get private messages on, that I even do coaching on, is guys will do the, it's called relationship equity thing, where they go and do I moved to the part of town that she wanted, I bought the house that she wanted, I renovated the bathroom that she wanted, I had the kids that she wanted, I paid for the private school that she wanted. And you could go all the way down the list and da-da-da-da. And it's like, after a while, she leaves him. And he thought he was doing what he was supposed to do. He thought he was being the strong, virtuous alpha male, providing for her needs and her agenda. And that's not what women want. They really don't. They want to be with a giant. In fact, you're going to see one of the comments in that video that I did with Miki and her daughter. I'm not sure if I'll upload it before or after, but check that one out. But yeah, women don't want to be the winner. They want to be with a winner. And they want to be able to benefit from that relationship. But you can't be their plow horse. If you end up becoming their plow horse, it just doesn't end well. It really doesn't end well. You might think it end well, but all you're going to do is you're going to delay the inevitable, which is it's just not going to work out and it's going to fall apart. So let's see. Do I have anything else here I wanted to go through? Yeah, that's it. All right. So my notes are done. I wanted to upload this video for you guys in a little depth because it's particularly relevant to me. It's relevant to this time of year, and I think it'll add a lot of value to your lives. I've put a lot of thought into recording this video now. So I hope you get something out of it. Smash the like button. If there's somebody that needs to see it, please share it with them. Sharing this sorts of stuff on social media helps get out the word and brings in more viewers and helps me continue to build this. If you need coaching on something that you might be stuck on, you can, of course, book my time on the clarity.fm platform. And if you want to become a Patreon, there's a video coming out soon that explains all the tiers and how that all works. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Have an amazing day. Leave a comment below on what your thoughts and experience have been in this arena. And we'll talk to you later. Peace.